You're listening to the Dunesteef Audio Fiction Magazine. And now here's your hosts, Rish Outfield and Big Anklevich.
Thank you very much, Announcer Man. Always a professional. Amazing.
Good evening. Welcome to the Dunesteef Audio Fiction Magazine.
Volume 1, Number 1, page 172.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I am kidding.
Oh, well, this is Rish Outfield.
And this is Big Anklevich.
This week's story is Around the Bend by Maria Schneider.
Maria Schneider grew up in New Mexico, where the stark desert required that she embellish the landscape with her imagination. After working in the computer industry for 12 years, she decided that technology moved too slowly and again put her imagination to work, creating messes and then inventing characters to handle all the cleanup. She currently resides in Texas.
Around the Bend by Maria Schneider. West Park Road in Cedar Park, Texas, just got new asphalt. The old road used to be one track with no lines and barely room for two cars to pass. It dead-ended at the last farmhouse, but now it's opened up with a stoplight and an intersection that leads back south towards more subdivisions. I drive the road nearly every day to and from work. The countryside out one window and the very edge of suburbia on the other. Horses and cows butted up against newness. I hadn't driven the road after dark because it was so narrow. The first night I tried it, I realized that maybe it still wasn't all that safe even after being widened. In a spot about halfway to the new intersection, a milky pale presence flashed across my rearview mirror. I hit the brakes. The murderous blotch blinked from view, as though someone leaned forward, ready to cut my throat. Heart pounding, I gripped the steering wheel, waiting for pain. When I finally dared look, no one was there. The seats were bare, save a single grocery sack. The floor contained nothing but normal shadows. Behind me, the road was an empty black snake. I hadn't run over anyone either, not that I could see. Maybe a white cat scooted behind the car, causing the flash over the mirror. I avoided the road at night for a long while. In the summer, it never got dark by the time I drove home from work, so it took a while to realize that the shadow was still there. During daylight, it was like passing under a large tree branch. A quick darkening forced me to look in the mirror, but by that time, whatever it was gone. There was nothing in or around the road, only a quiet two-story house on one side and an old barn barely visible behind trees on the other. I stopped at a vegetable stand one time, just a few yards from the spot. The farmer was a gruff old man with spouts of white hair poking out from under a baseball cap. Matching patches of whiskers spotted his chin and jawbone. His vegetables were fresh and bursting with color. I asked him who used to own the property across the street from him, just to the west a bit. Was it a big farm before it became the subdivision, I wondered. His eyes, the type that mind their own business, flicked impatiently in the direction I pointed.
Do you want those tomatoes or not?
Startled, I handed him $2 and assured him of my enthusiasm. Yes, the tomatoes look great. I waited in vain for my change. The $2 disappeared into his coveralls while he looked back up the road. He didn't answer my question, and he didn't give me change. Confused, I took quick refuge in my SUV and drove off, the shadow passing my window and mirror as always, just 100 yards or so further along. I watched for more farmers to put up stands to no avail. Most of the neighbors had cows or horses, not gardens. As the sun burnt spring away to hot summer, there was a garage sale down at the end of the road. It was probably a half mile or more from the shadow, but on impulse I stopped. There was nothing but junk at the sale, odds and ends that had been in the barn far too long to be useful. If y'all are starting a restaurant, you might could use these here items for decor, the lady explained. She was dressed in old sweatpants rather than a cute country apron. Heavily overweight, she waddled over to the pieces of metal I was staring at. Used to be part of a butter churn, she said. picking up an odd end. It looked more like a handle to a corn grinder, but I didn't argue. Are you selling out to a subdivision? I asked instead. You know, like the other side of the street. She chuckled. I only wish. No one wants to buy these places anymore. My grandma, she could have gotten a mint if she had sold to those developers. I remember her complaining about it. Did she want to sell, I asked, thinking of my grandparents and the farm in West Texas that they had lost to the bank. They hadn't been lucky enough to have a subdivision buy them out. The lady moved pieces of junk around on the table, making sure to hold them up for my inspection. I guess. Disappointment warred with stubbornness. So you don't know anyone that used to live over there? I stopped to make up a lie. I thought a friend of my family used to own one of the farms on the other side of the road. I waved toward where the shadow appeared. Hang on, she said. Dad! When no one responded, she said, he's so deaf anyway. Maybe I better not get him because he doesn't know I'm selling all this stuff. She glanced back at me. You gonna buy that butter churn? It'd make a nice decoration. I don't think so. I wandered closer to the house, thinking I might spy her father, but no luck. The recliner on the porch had a for sale sign that did little to hide the stained stuffing poking out. It's a comfy chair, the lady puffed from behind me. I wonder if my grandparents would have sold and moved into a fancy new subdivision if given the chance, I mused. She ignored my comment. When her father still didn't appear, I headed back to my car. Have you ever noticed? I stopped. She wasn't the type to notice a shadow in her mirror. Later that week, I looked up her address in the phone book. When I finally got the nerve, I called and asked to speak to the elder, Mr. Jonas. He can't hear a blessed thing over the phone, and we ain't buying anything, his daughter told me before she hung up. It didn't matter because I didn't know the names of anyone that had lived on the south side of the road anyway. Knowing how to solve that little problem, I took myself to the county courthouse one fine rainy day and looked up titles, thinking of my grandparents. Had they tried to sell their property before the bank took it? What about the people here? Had they been forced out and left their shadows on the road? Looking through the records wasn't hard, but it was confusing to turn individual lots back into farmhouses. Buying for the subdivisions near the road started 20 years ago. The clerk suggested that I start with the homesteads from 100 years ago so that I could tell when farmhouses were just passing hands versus being bought by the developer.
Most folks stayed a long time in a place until recently,
She told me.
the way the farms were broken into houses nowadays. You could pick the wrong area entirely unless you knew where the survey markers were at.
It didn't take me long once I figured out that the first developer had sold to a second one, somewhere along the way. Then it was easier to look through and find Coulton Brothers Limited. The company finished buying the land within a couple of years. I was surprised to find that the vegetable farmer used to own the property right across the street from his current address. Mr. Samuelson only had to sell half his farm, I guess. Unfortunately, there was nothing in the files to help solve the mystery of the shadow in the road. It wasn't likely that the developers had been evil men and buried someone under the new houses. The ghost... I didn't even believe in ghosts. And if there was one, it was right out there in the middle of the road, not under the houses. I refused to think any more about the shadow, especially after I looked on the web and found that Coulton Brothers was no longer in business. It was just a silly blotch. There was no trail to follow. The shadow would have stayed buried where it couldn't bother me, except that after work one day, a voice hailed me from across an island of potatoes at the grocery store. I almost didn't recognize the lady from the garage sale because she was in one of those courtesy carts for the handicapped, or those too lazy to walk. Hey, ain't you the one that had some friends across the road? She waved a Roma tomato at me. I stuttered to a halt. The man next to her had to be 70. Unlike his daughter, he wasn't fat at all, although his legs jerked a bit when he stepped forward. He used a grocery cart to help keep him steady, but he wasn't in a motorized wheelchair cart like his daughter.
Oh, yes.
The man said with a wrinkled smile.
My daughter told me about you. Who are your friends?
My mouth gaped. Oh, the ones that lived across from, it took me a few seconds to remember Samuelson. And of course it was stupid because no one lived across from him but him. Samuelson, I said anyway because it was the only name I knew. The elderly man didn't have to think but a moment.
Mary and her daughter. It was a good thing that subdivision came when it did. Saved their lives, I expect. What with her husband running off. What was his name?
He looked at his daughter picking through the tomatoes.
Ran off about 6 months before she had to sell out. We were lucky. Subdivision didn't want our side, or we might have been forced out.
Mary and her daughter? I mumbled. They weren't renting?
Renting what?
The farmhouse across from Samuelson, I improvised. He chuckled.
Back in those days, you didn't rent. You owed everyone a nickel trying to keep things together. I was lucky my parents were able to leave me the place. No one had the money to do any renting back then.
Oh, do you know where they went?
No.
He said. He took the plastic bag full of tomatoes that his daughter handed him.
Didn't keep track. I just remember them 'cause it was so sad. The husband running off and leaving her and the little girl. The kid couldn't have been more than 6 years old.
Did y'all want that butter churn after all? The lady in the wheelchair asked coyly. I still have it. No. I backed away. Thanks for the information. It was very kind of you. I directed my comments to the old man, who nodded and gave me a final wave. I ignored the woman's mumble about, too bad can't charge for information. I finished my grocery shopping in record time. Even though I had milk, I stopped by the courthouse. Maybe the clerk had been right, and I should have started farther back. Now that I knew what I was looking for, it didn't take long. The year before Samuelson sold the place to the subdivision, the mortgage and property had transferred to him from Mary and Nick Eccles. Of course, there was no mention of the daughter. I went to the library next. There weren't any news articles online from so far back, and the library was too small to have kept old newspapers on microfiche. The librarian promised to try and get photocopies from the university for me. On the way home, I passed the shadow. It was probably from the little girl that had lost her home. Maybe she was waiting by the side of the road for her father to return home and got hit by a car. Then again, the old man from the garage sale hadn't said anything about the little girl dying. He probably would have mentioned it had that happened. The next day, instead of going to the library, I took Scruffy, my dog, to the shadow in the road. Scruffy didn't seem to notice anything wrong. She was just a mutt dog with multicolored fur and a fierce bark for a dog that was only a foot high. Her only problem was that she was very obedient. If I called her back, she'd come right away. I parked in broad morning daylight at the edge of Samuelson's property, but on the subdivision side, not quite on the sidewalk. There was only a ditch for a runoff on the farm side, and Scruffy liked the idea of putting her nose to the ground and exploring such interesting dirt. She stopped at the cedar fence and looked back at me. "Go on," I whispered, waving my hands forward, hoping anyone watching would take it for a worried waving. "I'm coming." She picked up the fretting in my tone because she was a smart dog, but she was smart enough to know it wasn't directed at her. She hopped over the lowest board, even though I'm pretty sure she could have scampered beneath it. While she wasn't looking, I put my hands on my hips and moved my mouth as though calling for her. In what I hoped was obvious frustration, I climbed the fence and covertly threw one of her balls. I then gave chase. It was a game we played, and Scruffy, my undercover dog, performed beautifully. She barked once, grabbed the ball, and ran from me. The ball reduced her barking to growls, just as planned. I helped her towards the barn by herding her there. She paused at the two big doors that were wide enough for a tractor. This dilapidated structure was more interesting than our game. I thought so, too, even though the barn was too far from the road to house a body to go with the ghost. From the road, the barn was partly hidden behind overgrown oak scrubs and cedars. It didn't look as though it had been used in a century, all lopsided and held together only by leaning parts and sheer luck. One door sagged half over, never to close again. If there was a body in there, it wasn't likely to be lying around waiting to be found. "Stupid," I muttered. I went in anyway. Scruffy was curious, but she stayed next to me. It took forever for my eyes to adjust. My heart never did. The barn probably looked pretty much like the garage sale ladies before the sale. There were handles with nothing on the end, an old rusted kettle, and hay littering the ground. Dust motes danced all over the place, in light that filtered through loose boards. Scruffy barked and dove into the corner, scaring every ounce of life out of me. "Scruffy," I whispered on a choke.
You're more than just a nosy one.
The voice behind me froze me in place. In a half reach for Scruffy, I fell to my knees. Looking backwards, all I could see was a silhouette in the doorway. I lost my dog when we stopped so she could I had the excuse ready, but I was breathing too hard to get it out.
He won't stay dead.
The farmer replied flatly.
I moved my gate from the end of my property so I didn't have to drive through it anymore. But it didn't matter. He's been dead and gone 20 years, but it don't matter. Every now and again, someone like you notices him there on the corner.
Noticed? He waved his arm. Attached to the end was a long blade. For half a second, I thought he had scissors for hands, but then I realized it was worse. He held an old scythe. I hadn't seen the newspaper clippings yet, but I knew. You knew about the subdivision, didn't you? My teeth chattered, although it wasn't the least bit cold. I clutched Scruffy to my chest. That didn't stop her from growling low in her throat.
Of course I knew.
He exploded.
And that fool only needed to sell to me. He was in over his head just like everyone else. I gave him a good offer.
But he found out about the subdivision.
Fool. There's always some fool asking too many questions. And it cost him, it did.
He waved the scythe.
You're just another one asking questions.
He was going to tell the other farmers, I whispered.
He's gone. He can't tell anyone. I don't know why he stays at that corner. He's dead.
Samuelson howled.
I moved the gate.
His arm raised and he stepped forward. Unlike the old man in the grocery, his legs were steady. I turned and ran blindly. I didn't know where I thought I was going to go. There was a sliver of light behind me, and I plowed full speed into it with not a chance of fitting between the boards. Scruffy jumped free of my arms as I reached to catch myself. "Help!" I screeched, falling. The scythe hit me square on the shoulders. A sharp pain. I crawled, but the boards were in my way, collapsing all around me. Scruffy barked like crazy. I went towards the sound, pushing fallen boards away, gasping on dust and choking. Splinters grabbed my hands and knees, but I didn't stop. Sunlight! I shook my head and looked back to see if he was chasing me, but the roof sagged mightily, nearly covering the hole I had made. "Run, Scruffy!" I yelled. I found my feet, and while bolting forward, felt for the cut across my back. I was lucky. The pain had just been boards falling down around me, not the scythe I feared. The ghost is dark and angry. It hovers at the border of the man who helped an abandoned wife by buying her property. There was only a little road there once, nothing more than a one-lane track with a shallow ditch on either side. On a cold, rainy evening, who would notice Farmer Samuelson stop at his own gate? If there were a man there to speak to him, who would see him in the dim light? Farmers are always moving things, loading fence boards into the back of their trucks, or maybe unloading them. No one pays too much attention. No one would think twice of the farmer shoveling dirt and preparing his garden. That's where I told the police to look for the body. I never did have any proof. Not really, but I dared to mention the shadow. The detective was local. He'd been born in Cedar Park. He laughed and said,
"You're kidding, right? I've seen that spot. There's an old light pole back a ways from the road. They never took it out when they put in the subdivision. When I used to patrol, I noticed it throws that funny shadow because the trees have almost covered the light."
At my doubting look, he chuckled again.
"Stop there at night. You'll see what I mean."
He finished his questions then, taking my story about what old Samuelson said in the barn a lot more seriously than my concern about the shadow. Stubbornly, I waited a week before I went back to look in broad daylight. Just like the officer said, there was an old tarred light pole tucked behind the trees, quite unlike the fancy silver ones that lined most of the street. It didn't explain the flicker in my rearview mirror as I drove off. The light wasn't on during the day, and it was yards and yards from the road. I didn't think it would throw any shadows at night either. Shadow or not, the police start digging tomorrow. No matter what they find, I'll never buy vegetables from old Samuelson again, and not because he shortchanged me. I told the police to look in the garden, but I also mentioned the old gate. Something of Nick's must still be there. I know it, and so does Samuelson.
Author's note.
There really is a West Park Road in Cedar Park, and there really are funny white shadows on the road at night. It was the shadows and the cemetery at the end of the road that sparked my imagination for this story. I wrote 3 or more drafts before I figured out the motivation for the murder. A visit back home to the remote lands in New Mexico, where property feuds are still common, provided the germination I needed. Whenever civilization gets too crowded, neighbors argue over land rights, and children fight for their inheritance. Sometimes the fight results in the ultimate sacrifice. And later down the line, if justice is served, the ultimate penalty.
Hey, thanks for listening to the story. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed it.
Dude, I did. I enjoyed, if I can say this, the hell out of that story, man.
You can say that.
Oh, well, 080T? Oh, hey, he's looking at me. 080T.
Show him what I taught you, 80T.
Whoa, I don't get it. What does that mean?
You can't tell what that gesture is?
Oh, those are his fingers. Dude, that's not cool. Right back at you, pal.
All right.
What I was saying is that I really liked that story. And if you're listening at home, you're welcome to leave a comment there on the blog. Tell us what you thought.
Tell, Maria Schneider what you thought of her story. She can see what you have to say about it. Tell her if you loved it. Tell her if you hated it. Tell her if you want her to rewrite paragraph 17 and include more genitalia references. Whatever.
You could even leave a comment to tell us to have the robot killed, and we would take that into serious consideration. 080T? Do you understand what I'm saying to you right now? Was that... Hey, wait, why did you laugh? No, seriously, you're able to understand him?
Yeah, I can understand him.
How? You cannot tell me that you learned robot in the time that we got that thing. Could you stop laughing? Hey, what are you reading?
All right, when 080T says something, when I installed him, he says something, there's this little, it's like an instant messenger program, it's like AIM or Messenger or whatever, pops up on the screen, and it translates what he says, writes it out in English, and I can read it over here on my screen.
But it doesn't show up on my screen.
Yeah, it doesn't work with Vista, man.
Damn it, dude, nothing works on Windows Vista. Okay, so it seems like about an hour ago I asked him a question. I can't even remember what I asked him. What did he say when I asked him the question?
I don't remember what your question was.
Okay, but read me right there the last thing that he said.
All right. It says, Rish, as always, is very right.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Oh. Well, maybe I was wrong about him. I guess I thought that he had an attitude and that he didn't like... Wow, he really said that.
Yeah, really.
What?
Nothing, man. Sorry, moving on. So if you have a story that you'd like to submit to us, we have an address you could send it to. It's submissions@dunesteef.com. Take a look at our submission guidelines on our website at dunesteef.com.
Hey, Big Anchorage, can I ask you a question, man?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
It's dunesteef.com. We've been calling it this for a while. What is Dunesteef? What does that mean?
Sure. Yeah, Dunesteef, it's actually a Choctaw Indian word.
Oh, really?
Do you know any Choctaw?
Oh, heck no. What does it mean, man?
It means audio fiction magazine.
Oh. Okay. Now I know. I guess I won't have to to ask you again.
Yeah, you should. So, do you think we should beg for donations this week?
Well, I don't know. We do it week after week, and okay, what would you do if we did beg?
I don't know. I could say hey everybody, please give us a donation. We've got a PayPal donation button right on the side, and if you don't donate, well, my wife just got a kitten, and I'm gonna give it one good kick for every person who doesn't donate.
No, don't do that. I think people will be turned off. So yeah, let's just skip the whole begging thing this week.
Okay, moving on. Today we wanted to talk a little bit about someone that we really enjoy.
Barbara Mandrell, right? This is the Barbara Mandrell show.
I think we're doing that one next week. Man.
Next week. Okay. So this was...
Today we're going to talk about Jonathan Coulton.
Oh, Jonathan Coulton. Dude, almost as great.
Almost. Mandrell show was so good, though.
I know. Jeez, you remember that it was wholesome and it was country, and yet it was always high-quality entertainment.
It's almost as good as Hee Haw.
Well, I wouldn't go that way. We'll save that one for sweeps.
Okay. So anyways, Jonathan Coulton.
Now, hey, there may be people that don't know who Jonathan Coulton is.
Right.
And I think you should bitch slap them and then bring them up to speed.
Okay.
Can we say bitch slap on the podcast? Oh, wait, OT? Is that a word that's appropriate? It's not making me like him to know how darn funny he is. So did we get a judge's ruling on that word that I can't say again?
No.
After all this, I can't say it.
No, you can say it if you want. We didn't get any ruling. So back to bringing up to speed. Jonathan Coulton is...
He was the 39th president of the United States, folks.
Jonathan Coulton writes, records, and releases amazing songs via his website.
Okay, you know how Weird Al Yankovic would release an album and about half the songs would be parody songs, but the other half would just be like odd and quirky little songs that were his own music.
Yeah, he actually wrote himself.
And I always felt like those songs were always really, really good. And Weird Al was sort of dismissed as, something juvenile and that. But he had a hell of a lot of talent. And to me, Jonathan Coulton is like that. It's the same tone and mindset. Really unusual songs, maybe geek-centric kind of music with odd topics or...
they're not even necessarily geek-centric sometimes. They are just straight-up songs. He has plenty of songs that you could just say is a breakup song, or this song is a love song. He even does those.
A love song to his computer, or
sometimes
a love song to the ex-planet Pluto.
Right, but goodness gracious, is that a good song?
Yes,
I love that song.
It's on my list, dude.
Oh,
Holy
man.
cow, it's heartbreaking, dude.
Yeah, he puts out songs like that, and even when he does his geek-centric song, he'll throw in the love story angle to it, which just gives his songs that much more depth.
One of the things that's unique about Jonathan Coulton is that many of his songs are released under the Creative Commons license, like our show, where you can play the song on your podcast. You can download the song and share it with whoever you like, which is, I guess, why we get to do an episode dedicated to Jonathan Coulton.
Yeah, the stuff that he writes, he puts it out there. He shares it with the world.
That's a really unique way to get your music heard. But it endeared him to me in that this guy was this talented, and yet he was willing to just give you the song. It was like a friend of yours. It was like, hey, I wrote this. Check it out.
Yeah. He lives by being a songwriter. I mean, that's his job. He does shows around the country. You can go on to his website if you love his music and request that he come to your town. And
we got to do that.
And do a show. I've done it myself, but I've tried to kick you in the butt enough to get you to do it. And yeah, he makes his money doing shows and from donations. He puts his songs out there, and you can download them. He has plenty of them that he has on his site that are just free. And then other ones he asks for $1 per song.
And apparently it works well enough that that's a considerable portion of his yearly income.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hey, in case somebody hasn't rushed out to jonathancolton.com, can we play one of his songs?
Sure we can, yeah. I would say probably my favorite Jonathan Coulton song of all is his song called Code Monkey, in which a monkey, a computer nerd that writes computer code at a crappy job, similar to the job that I work each day, only he writes computer code instead. Of course, in his true fashion, he includes a great little love story inside this song. So we'll go ahead and play it now and have a listen.
Code monkey, get up, get coffee. Code monkey, go to job. Code monkey, have boring meeting with boring manager Rob. Rob say code monkey very diligent, but his output stink. His code not functional or elegant. What do code monkey think? Code monkey think maybe manager wanna write goddamn login page himself. Code monkey not say it out loud. Code monkey not crazy, just proud. Code monkey like Fritos. Code monkey like Tab and Mountain Dew. Code monkey very simple man with big warm fuzzy secret heart. Code monkey like you. Code monkey like you. Code monkey hang around at front desk till your sweater look nice. Code monkey offer buy you soda, bring you cup, bring you ice. You say no thank you for the soda, cause soda make you fat. Code Monkey have long walk back to cubicle. He sit down, pretend to work. Code Monkey not thinking so straight. Code Monkey not feeling so great. Code Monkey like Fritos. Code Monkey like Tab and Mountain Dew. Code Monkey very simple man. Big warm fuzzy secret heart. Code Monkey like you. Code Monkey like you. Lots. Code Monkey have every reason to get out this place. Code Monkey just keep on working. See your soft pretty face. Much rather wake up, eat a coffee cake, take bath, take nap. This job fulfilling in creative way, such a load of crap. Code Monkey thinks someday he have everything, even pretty girl like you. Code Monkey just waiting for now. Code Monkey says someday, somehow. Code Monkey like Fritos. Code Monkey like Tab and Mountain Dew. Code Monkey very simple man. Big warm fuzzy secret heart. Code Monkey like you. Code Monkey like you.
All right, so what'd you guys think of that song? Good stuff, huh?
Were you asking the listeners or me and the robot?
Well, I was asking the listeners, but for us, it's just listener. John Smith, what did you think of that song?
How's the weather over there?
Wait.
221 Crescent Circle.
223. Gosh, now he's going to quit listening.
Sir, I take it back. Your neighbor is attractive too. Okay, another really unique thing about Jonathan Coulton is that for a year, he did this experiment called Thing a Week, where every week for a year, he wrote a song and posted it on his website for people just to download for free, just to see as a creative exercise if he could pull it off. And he did.
Yeah, sure it wasn't a masterpiece every week, but some of the songs are so good.
And was Code Monkey?
Code Monkey was one of the songs that was part of Thing a Week.
Now, were you aware of Jonathan Coulton while the Thing a Week was going on?
I was not aware of it. I believe that Thing a Week, the podcast, is still available from iTunes, and you can download it still. That's what I did.
And I got the songs from his website at jonathancoulton.com directly. I think you can still get them there, too.
Oh, yeah, they're still available on his website. Yeah, and there are many songs that are not a part of Thing a Week. Still great songs. Seriously, almost every one of them.
Some of his songs are really, really funny, and I have seen video of him performing in front of an audience, and it's almost like a stand-up comic routine. You know, the laughter is there, in addition to the applause and the singing along and the groping.
And the Code Monkey dance.
Is there a Code Monkey dance?
Someone invented one and made a YouTube video of it that you can download.
Oh, that's another place you can find a lot of Jonathan Coulton. People have taken his songs, which I guess is perfectly okay, and made their own little music videos from them. I've seen a couple where they've used like World of Warcraft characters and made them dance and made it look like they're singing along. And
I've seen some animated ones. Somebody did an animated video to Chiron Beta Prime, and it's pretty impressive.
They animated it themselves?
I don't know exactly how it was animated, but it's drawings.
Yeah, that's just one of those things where I guess it's a new use of media, is this Creative Commons thing. I had never even heard of Creative Commons before, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was reading the blog post that he did for the Thing a Week song called Flickr, which instead of just being a song, this time he did a video. He went on to Flickr, got some random pictures, and wrote a song to these pictures.
And Flickr is one of those sites also with Creative Commons stuff.
Right. And in the blog post afterwards, he said, yeah, this is, we put this together, and this is something that you can do. And then he says, like, I challenge you to do something, to go out there and do something and put it out there for the world and give it to them and create it as a Creative Commons thing. Which, I mean, I thought that was cool. I mean, shoot, did you take a picture of your dog or something like that? And you can put it out there, Creative Commons, and then if people need a picture of a dog, they can use it on their website. You know, it's like a cool, sharing, lovely commune. A community of people out there sharing.
Well, dude, when I get home, when I'm done downloading porn, I think I'm going to go onto Flickr and try and participate in the thing. It's still going, right?
Yeah, I don't really know anything about anything. I don't really know what Flickr is all about, but I'm pretty sure it's still going on.
It was a childhood book that we all loved, My Friend Flickr. And I believe it ended badly for the little robot over there in the corner.
Yeah, so his songs are often rather funny, and so we thought we'd play one of his more funny songs. And so I asked my friend here, Rish Outfield, what's your favorite Jonathan Coulton song of all time? And you said what?
I said, get off, bit. No, I didn't say that. You know, it changes all the time. But right now, as of today, we're in September, folks. It's Skull Crusher Mountain. Oh, wait, OT, have you been listening to our conversation?
That's a yes.
Oh, cool. Do you have a copy of Skull Crusher Mountain?
That's a yes.
Right. Hey, would you go ahead and play that for us? What did he say?
Nothing. Hey, 080T, can you play Skull Crusher Mountain?
Welcome to my secret lair on Skull Crusher Mountain. I hope that you've enjoyed your stay so far. I see you met my assistant Scarface. His appearance is quite disturbing, but I assure you he's harmless enough. He's a sweetheart, calls me master, and he has a way of finding pretty things and bringing them to me. Surprised that you agree. If you could find some way to be a little bit less afraid of me, you'd see the voices that control me from inside my head say I shouldn't kill you. I made this half pony, half monkey monster to please you, but I get the feeling that you don't like it. What's with all the screaming? You like monkeys, you like ponies. Maybe you don't like monsters so much. Maybe I used too many monkeys. Isn't it enough to know that I ruined a pony making a gift for you? Oh, and I'm so into you, but I'm way too smart for you. Surprised that you agree. If you could find some way to be a little bit less afraid of me, you'd see the voices that control me from inside my head say I shouldn't kill you. Picture the two of us alone inside my golden submarine, while up above the waves my doomsday squad ignites the atmosphere. And all the fools who lead their foolish lives may find it quite explosive. Well, it won't mean half as much to me if I don't have you here. No, it isn't easy living here on Skull Crusher Mountain. Maybe you could cut me just a little slack. Would it kill you to be civil? I've been patient, I've been gracious, and this mountain is covered with wolves. Hear them howling, my hungry children. Maybe you should stay and have another drink and think about me and you. Oh, and I'm so into you, but I'm way too smart for you. Think
And that's my favorite Jonathan Coulton song right now. But he's got so many great ones that who knows what it'll be like a month from now.
You know what song these days that I find myself listening to again and again is his newest song called Always the Moon. It's not geeky, it's not goofy, it's not any of those kind of things. It's just a good song. I like it a lot.
I have tried my hand at writing music before.
Really?
And I've got one song that I would let other people hear.
Oh, yeah?
Because, dude, it is so hard to write music.
I've always wanted to, but I've got no talent whatsoever for music. So, I've never gotten past writing the lyrics. And then I just say, oh, no, it's a poem.
Well, hey, I guess you and I got something in common there. His lyrics are always really, really good, clever, something that you appreciate more once you read the lyrics or have somebody quote the lyrics to you with a gun to your head. And I guess I was just going to say the whole thing a week, 52 or 50 or however many he did that year. That's just astounding, dude, especially from someone who has tried to write songs.
Yeah, it's something to think about, just how much talent the guy's got to have. Visit his site, listen to his songs, become an addict like me. So that's our show for today.
In closing, we thought we would end on a scary note since we had yet another scary story today by playing probably, wait, I'm not even going to say probably, definitely the scariest song Jonathan Coulton has recorded.
That's right. We'll finish off the podcast with Creepy Doll.
In a town in the woods at the top of a hill, there's a house where no one lives. So you take a big bag of your big city money there and buy it. But at night when the house is dark and you're all alone, there's a noise upstairs. At the top of the stairs there's a door and you take a deep breath and try it. And the flashlight shows you something moving just inside the door. There's a tattered dress and a feeling you have felt somewhere before. And there's a creepy doll that always follows you. It's got a ruined eye, it's always open. And there's a creepy doll that always follows you. It's got a pretty mouth to swallow you whole. So you scream and you close the door and you tell yourself it was just a dream. In the morning you head into town 'cause you wanna go antiquing. In the store there's a strange old man with a wandering eye and a withered hand. When he hands you the old wooden box you can hear his old bones creaking. And you know what you will find inside the moment that you see that someone's carved your name into the tarnished silver key. And there's a creepy doll that always follows you. It's got a ruined eye, it's always open. And there's a creepy doll that always follows you. It's got a pretty mouth to swallow you whole. When you come home late, the doll is waiting up for you. When you fix a snack, the doll says it would like one too. Doll is in your house and in your room and in your bed. The doll is in your eyes and in your arms and in your head, and you are crazy. Now it's late and you head downstairs 'cause you just can't sleep, so you make some tea. And the doll disapprovingly asks if you really need that much honey. You decide that you've had enough and you lock the doll in the wooden box. You put the box in the fireplace next to your bag
thank you for listening to the Dunesteef Audio Fiction Magazine. The Dunesteef Audio Fiction Magazine is published under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. This means that you can share the Dunesteef with anyone you'd like, but you can't sell or change the files. Take two.
And if you don't have a home, you can buy one there. IKEA, just some oak and some pine and a handful of Norsemen.
Good night.
Edit that out, would you, 08OT? Thanks.
Well, this is Rish Outfield.
And this is Big Anklovich.
You want to double check? Do you still Big Anklovich?
It's...
We paused. You said, this is Big Anklovich.
Yeah, no. It's still me.
Wait, we're actually recording right now?
08OT, you want to edit that out?
Yeah, in fact, edit the whole damn thing out, please.
Just leave in the part about the man thing.
Giant size man thing. Oh, what are we doing?
Includes Hitler in it.
Okay, never mind.
Your favorite, your hero.
I do love Hitler. Oh, gosh. I don't even have words. I have an erection right now. That's how much I love Hitler. We're not recording, are we? Oh, wait, OT, can you cut out all the love references to Hitler, please?
Oh, wait, OT misses it. Oh, cut it out. Maria Schneider grew up in New Mexico, where the... I'm going to have to turn that because I can't see it well enough.
That's what she said.
I don't remember what your question was.
Okay, but read me right there the last thing that he said.
Give me the keys, cocksucker. Take a look at our submission guidelines on our website at dunesteef.com and send it our way, and we'll read it and reject it out of hand without really giving it a chance.
Unless you're hot.
Oh, yes. If you include a picture of a hot... Yeah, that would really...
Of a hot chick. She doesn't even have to be you. Just, I'm that alone, really.
Oh, wait, OT, play the sad music.
Oh, you've trained him to do that. See, okay, you know what? He is not all bad. I take back about a third of the things that I said about him that were negative.
We need the robot voice to go, Jonathan Coulton, creepy dog.
Oh, gosh, I hate that.
And I want,
And I want,
and I need,
and I need,
and I love,
and I love.
animal.
Hit it, Steve. 08OT, can you cut that out, please?
He says, well,
Thank you. You're a good robot.
I shouldn't kill